And we're about to get underway with the first of our races today, and then there's just one race more that takes us all the way through into tomorrow lunchtime. It's John Hindhaugh and Johnny Palmer with you for the second of two races this weekend from the Alpine Elf Europa Cup. What a fabulous event we had yesterday, and it would suggest that certainly the weather would suggest that we're in for just as much action today. Johnny Palmer joins me in the Global Broadcast Centre. Good morning, JP. What a great way to start our Saturday and Sunday broadcasts here on the Radio Show Limited network of channels and, of course, on the Alpine Cup Europa Facebook Live page.
Yeah, fantastic, isn't it, to have this category, which has been going for 3 minutes, in fact. So three years so far, the 2018 championship debuting for these little cars, the A110s, and the grid already forming already onto the field of cars.
Yeah, and JP, a very poignant moment here for everyone in the championship. Stéphane Preux, who has competed in the Alpine Cup for the last 3 years, lying 10th in the championship this year, sadly died earlier this week. And the grid is gathered round his 05 car on the front of the grid here at Barcelona to keep them in his memory and to honour the memory of Stéphane Preux. Very emotional at the front of the grid with his former competitors gathering around that blue and white 05 Alpine for Stéphane Preux, who died earlier this week. Great that his car is here, and what a way to honour him. And as we always say at difficult times like this, Mr. Palmer, the sport will go on. I'm sure what Stéphane would have hoped and indeed expected of the guys against whom he used to compete, and they will honour him in the best possible way in the next half an hour or so by ragging these little A110s absolutely round this circuit, this Grand Prix track, one of 6 that the Alpine Elf Europa Cup Tour are visiting this year.
And yeah, it should be ever thus, if you like, because Stéphane Preux was racing till very recently in the last rounds at Spa-Francorchamps, so that will have become such a shock to everybody involved, not just family, close friends, but all those that have shared a grid either this year or in previous years as well, because Stéphane has raced in the Alpine Cup, as I was mentioning, started in 2018, and he's been there, was there from the start, racing with a variety of teams through the years and some very good results as well. Big shock that for all involved with the Alpine Europa Cup, but the race will continue in his honour today, and if it can be half as good as yesterday, some of the battling, then it will be a real tribute to Stéphane Preux. Lilou Wadou, the second place runner yesterday, she tried absolutely everything to get ahead of Simon Thermen to prevent him from getting a first win of his career, but the full points went to the Parisian in the end, arriving at this event 9th in the championship, having never been on pole position before and having never taken a win. So big strides for the 25-year-old returning to racing after something like an 8-year gap. Lilou Wadou, just 20 years old, and I think potentially a talent, maybe with a head turn to some of the GT cars elsewhere in the paddock for the next few years. She's into her second year now of Alpine Europa Cup racing, second in the championship, and trailing Jean-Baptiste Meyler, the defending champion, by just 19 points. I'm going by the points at the start of the weekend rather than the updated ones, trying to scribble those down as we go along. But Jean-Baptiste Meyler, not his ideal weekend so far. Had a 2-place grid drop because of contact in the previous race at Spa-Francorchamps, and then had to work very hard in the copper, orange, tangerine car to work its way through the field. Qualified in 13th, and after only a handful of corners had made ground, much like Garcia Rodest, who I think could do even better in today's race as well. Garcia finishing in the end in 8th position yesterday after good battles with Luca Freycinet and Corentin Thies for Herrero Racing. But yesterday's winner, Simon Theamen for Autosport GP, whose teammate is the defending champion Meyler, winning it by just 1.8 seconds ahead of Lili Wadu and Hugo de Wilde. And Hugo had tried his level best to get up to 2nd position at the first corner with a couple of wheels on the grass as he did so. Franck Roussel for Herrero Racing, the team that Stéphane Prou used to race for, will be the final car on the grid, John.
Just waiting for the final moments of preparation, and the team's been asked to leave the grid. So racing as part of the Trofeo Fermi Vélez here at the Circuit de Catalunya-Barcelona, the Formula 1 track. Jean-Baptiste Meyler, Hugo de Wilde reset for this Saturday race, separated by barely a 1/10 of a second in qualifying. Laurent Legan and Simon Theamen on row 2. Again, very tight indeed. Watch out for that Lili Wadu number 44 car. I thought she drove really well yesterday, JP. She'll start on the inside of row 3 in position 5. That'll give her a decent run down to the first corner. I thought that was a very mature and measured drive. There was a couple of opportunities when it looked like she'd got an opportunity, but wasn't about to drive her competitors, other competitors off the circuit, if you like.
Yeah, building on last year's championship, where she did all 10 of the races and finished 7th in the championship on 65 points. And I think that was the debut year for the French woman, because, yeah, didn't feature in the 2019 championship table. But then you've got to, you know, having finished within the top 10 of the championship runners, obviously her target then is to try and get into the top 3. And at the moment, all going nicely. At the halfway point, for example, 2nd in the championship and only, well, within 20 points of the leader, Jean-Baptiste Meyler, and that will have helped a great deal because, of course, the driver she finished behind yesterday was quite a way down in the championship, so she was the biggest winner for championship points in race 1 this weekend.
There was a couple of stories of drivers coming through from the tail end of the field after having, well, quite frankly, qualifying sessions to forget. Garcia Rodest being one of them. She did not get a legitimate and legal lap in qualifying. 8 flying laps discounted because of track limits. So she started dead last and fought her way up into the top 10. And she'll start from the inside of row 5 today. We know her background. We know she is a doughty competitor, and she's clearly quick at the start of the race, so expect to see her French blue car coming through the field. Got up into the 10 yesterday, then rather stalled behind the quicker runners once she got up to them. Today she's well in that midfield, JP, with a chance to move forward and better her championship position. Again, full championship run for her in 2021.
It's a very interesting point you make about no lap times produced from qualifying. That's quite right, but the grid for this race does have lap times next to it, so they must be done on fastest race laps from yesterday. Hence, Jean-Baptiste Meyler actually was the fastest car in yesterday's race and gets pole position, 1:56.5. He set that on lap 6 of the race from Hugo de Wilde. and then Laurent Hergon and Simon Tierman. So you've got the race winner, who was actually only 4th fastest in yesterday's 25-minute race. This is going to be fascinating because you've got yesterday's 2 quickest cars now sharing the front row. The Tangerine with the black roof of Jean-Baptiste Meyler, championship leader. He's also defending champion from 2020, up against the 18-year-old talent from Belgium, Hugo de Wilde, who's racing all sorts of different things, including prototypes as part of the European Le Mans Series with Inter-Europol competition this year. But he's also done a spell in the Le Mans Cup and the Alpine Cup, so he's a busy guy. Silver rated, and a big future ahead of Hugo de Wilde, I would reckon. White, blue and red coloured car on the outside of the front row. Then tucked in behind them, the principally black machine of Laurent Hergon from the LS Group Autosport GP. So again, a teammate to Meyler and Tierman, who he shares that second row with John. The white car, number 8, on the outside of the second row, is yesterday's winner.
Great to see spectators in the amphitheatre grandstands as they came up over the top of turn 12 into turn 13, and it is our pole sitter then, Jean-Baptiste Meyler, in the Tangerine Alpine, to drive us right towards the pit wall, waiting for the red lights to come out. They are absolutely crawling. It's not a standing start, but it's a very slow rolling start indeed, and Meyler reacts very quickly indeed to the green lights coming on. And well, it's such an even start. 1, 2, 3, 4 across the track, with Hugo de Wilde in the white car with the tricolour down the outside. They'll go side by side into turn 1. De Wilde will have the inside of turn 2, and almost inevitably there is an incident, and it is, I'm afraid, an off-track incident for Lucas Fresinet for Chazelle Technology Corsa at turn 1. There's another car involved there as well, which looks to me like Louis Maric for Race Car Consulting. Also, I did notice that Hugo de Wilde was well off track, not quite into the MotoGP penalty loop, but in coming back on again, he's dropped down to 3rd, and unsurprisingly, with 2 cars in the gravel, we've got a safety car, but even then, we've got cars on the grass coming down into turn number 5, Johnny, as they did not see the safety car sign there.
Yeah, and it depends what the ruling was at the driver's briefing as to how quickly you react to the safety car boards. Do you continue to race to the line, or it's very early on in the lap when the board started to be shown, so it relies on everybody seeing those boards as early as possible. The problem is you're charging hard into the braking area for turn 5, and a very disconsolate looking Louis Maric, who did not have a good race yesterday either, purely because he was done for track limits fairly early on. And had to come in for a drive-through penalty. He was running 4th at the time, I seem to remember, and that put him way down. So Maric starting 8th on the fastest race times from yesterday, already out of the race. It looked like he'd got sideways after contact with somebody else, actually, a third party, and that then also included Lucas Fresinet, because as Meric's car was spinning, Fresinet had really nowhere to go, and there's some contact which led to his car skating off into the gravel, and quite a heavy nose into the tyre barrier there, almost going straight on rather than turning right as everybody else did.
The safety car is out. I was about to say the safety Alpine, but it isn't the same car that paced them around the formation lap. There is evidence of some contact on the front of Maric's car, the number 31. Now, also missing, no, I was about to say also missing is Gregory Romano, but he's just gone across the line. So they're sitting in behind the Nissan GTR, which serves as the circuit safety car here at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, and it is our poleman who is in first position, and indeed Laurent Hergon it was that slipped through into second place when Hugo de Wilde went on his voyage of discovery around turn 1. Now that's not what, I don't think, at least JP, I don't think that's what precipitated all of the action that went on behind. I don't see in there, oh yes I do, Gosha Radest's just gone through past me there in 7th position, so she has had a decent start, having started a bit further up, and both cars exhibiting some frontal damage as if they'd run into the back of somebody under braking, JP.
Well, the frontal damage on 93 is purely from the tyres, I think, nosing into the barrier. And it was almost as if Freycinet caught on the outside line of turn 1, then was presented with a completely sideways Louis Méric from the race cars consulting team. And Méric was already having his own moment, having had some contact with, as I say, a third car, but I'm struggling to work out exactly who that was. It's the natural concertina effect into turn 1 that you so often get in other categories of racing as well. They'd splayed out completely, and you had one batch of cars on the right-hand side of the track, down the white line there, and one line of cars on the left side, and they were meeting in the middle, and some of those, like a zipper, some of those were going to be able to slot in, and then others weren't quite, and the space allowed for Louis Méric was maybe slightly compromised. Luca Freycinet was certainly in that batch on the outside of the corner as well, and on cold tyres, just couldn't keep the car on the black stuff after some avoiding action. So, yeah, hopefully not too much damage for that car as they think about the next meeting, which is only in a handful of weeks' time. And the 31 car hasn't hit anything solid, although is showing some scars from the contact it had with another runner before leaving the track. So 2 flatbeds have been ordered. They've arrived very swiftly indeed. And hopefully
they've got an app for that.
They must have. The response time is mightily impressive. And the marshals
can't get my breakdown service to come and pick me up that quickly.
There's plenty of room for those lorries as well to be parked on the track. Although I noticed one is sort of broadside between turns 1 and 2, so everyone will need to be aware of that as they head towards the first corner. Just had a brief thought then that they were all coming into the pit lane, but that's because the look of the run from 13 down to 14 is almost a little bit like peeling off for the pit lane. That's simply to shape them up into the chicane at 14 and 15, where you've got to be so careful to avoid the sausage curbs on the inside of the bend, but not very far away from the apex at all. There's a recovery vehicle, looks like a Nissan Duke, possibly coming into pit lane as well. This is all eating into the race time, remember. Clock continues to tick by, and this will be the second safety car lap now. Hopefully we won't need any more than this, but the cars that remain in the race heading towards the incident area now, well flagged by the marshals. And yeah, one truck which is a complete rollback. That's very smart indeed. In fact, they're both rollbacks, and one parked much more on the circuit, recovering Louis Méric's car. But both recoveries well underway, and I think they'll go possibly the wrong way down the track to return them to the pit lane.
Yes. You make a good point about the time. This is what is known in the trade as a time certain race. So we go to 0 and then go one more lap after that. And it just depends where you are on the track as to how long the race is. So if you've just gone across the line, the leader has just gone across the line as the race time, the 25 minutes expire, then of course you get a full extra lap. If you're halfway around, you still get that lap and then the next one. If you're just coming out of the final corner, for example, and time expired, then it's just the next lap. So it depends where you are on track when time expires. But it is, as I say, it is down to 0, and then wherever the leader is, next time by, they get the last lap board. So it could actually run a couple of minutes or so over the advertised race time. We're eating into that at the moment with just down to 17 minutes still to go. What it has done is closed everybody back up again after the avoidance that was required by everybody in the mid-pack for that first attempt at the start. Yeah, the Nissan pickup truck down there as well, looks like there's a little bit of fluid that has come from one of the cars either when it went in, and I wonder if that was Fresnay, because he just went straight on as Johnny described. And I wonder if he's had a braking issue and maybe popped a brake seal or something like that, and that was some brake fluid down, or it could be remnants of fluid from the car being towed back across the gravel. Race cars very low, these race cars, and they tend not to like being dragged backwards over gravel, which is why you don't want to put it in the gravel. The times that I have raced, I've always had a deal with my crew that if I come back and gravel needs to be taken out the car with a vacuum cleaner or whatever, the deal is I match the weight of the gravel in adult beverage of a fizzy canned or bottled variety, so it gets weighed and we convert that to fluid ounces, because there's nothing worse than getting those little bits of gravel out of every nook and cranny of any race car.
So it's a couple of slabs of beer is basically what you're saying.
Yes. Well,
that's very
well,
kind.
it is, Johnny. It is, well, because the guys have to work really hard to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's always a bit of a joke. It's not really to focus the mind of the driver, because you should be doing that anyway, and sometimes accidents, to quote Elvis Costello in the attractions, accidents will happen. But it's just something to say thank you. And it's amazing where it gets when you do go off. I have to say, and I'm looking for something that's vaguely organic wood to tap on at the moment, to knock on. It's been quite some time since I've found myself in gravel. It much more tends to be test days when you're just learning a new car. I think probably exiting Coppice at Donington Park was the last time I found myself in the gravel, in a Radical. My first session in a Radical, and that was a slab of beer.
Excellent.
That was a one slab off.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
You see, yeah.
Well, that suggests to me it was relatively minor, therefore, because I mean gravel weighs a bit, doesn't it? It depends which sort of track you've been in, but stone size will matter.
Very much so.
Yeah. So are you talking small boulders, or are you talking the grainy stuff? Anyway, go on. This is turning into almost rear wing chat that we had yesterday. Sizes of gravel in a trap. Talk about something sensible.
I have noticed that the single amber beacon on the top of the GTR has been extinguished, and the safety car driver has disappeared off to enjoy the excitement of turn 13 and then the slightly exciting and very slow final chicane before peeling into the pit lane. So we are back under the control of what was our pole sitting driver, Jean-Baptiste Meller, who has to come back to the line. He floors it through the final corner while everybody else has got a little bit of a lock on. That's really good restart practice. Laurent Agon follows him through. Hugo de Wilde, Lilou Vadou, Tierman, Thiers, Gaucher Dest in 7th position. Aurier Combe, who won the gentleman category yesterday and is in the top position in that gentleman category as well at the moment, and they get past the danger area for the second time of asking with just 12.5 minutes to go. Fabulous restart at the front of the field by the Autosport GP driver Jean-Baptiste Meller.
No stranger to winning races either this year or last, and didn't manage to work his way through the field quite as readily as he would have wished yesterday, because obviously the further you get up the order, the more difficult it is to overtake. But now with clear road in front of him, this could be a different story for Jean-Baptiste Meller. Lilou Vadou in the number 44 black car is running in the top 4 again, so she didn't start there on the grid but already working her way through, and second in the championship, looking to try and hope that Jean-Baptiste Meller doesn't break away too far. So Vadou with Hugo de Wilde in front. Laurent Agon has got a really good getaway, as John mentioned, and up to second position, matching Jean-Baptiste Meller for pace in these early stages, although through sector 2 Meller was marginally faster, half a second separate them. It is closer for third position on this first restart lap though, between 18-year-old Belgian driver and 20-year-old French driver Hugo de Wilde and Liluadu for third and fourth positions.
Johnny mentioning the age of the third and fourth position drivers there. There are three classes within this race. All the cars are identical. We have the overall class, if you will. Jean-Baptiste Mela and Laurent Ergon are both in that category. Then we have a junior category, and those drivers fill the next four places. Unfortunately, Lucas Fresenet and Louis Merrick were also in that category. There were 6 junior drivers that started. So Hugo de Wilde, Wadu, Corentin Thies, and who's just dropping down there? That would be... Was that be Tugadal Rabrio? No, he's in the main class. Oh, Simon Tierman is in the pits. Simon Tierman is coming to the pits. That's who dropped down. And the other class, led at the moment by Stefan Oriacom, is the gentleman driver class. 5 drivers in there. The race director has had a look at what went on at turn 1, lap 1. No action required. So that's been NFA'd, no further action. And we continue to race with no penalties being required. But Simon Tierman in the pits from what was 4th, I think, in the junior class, JP.
Yes, some good progress being made. I'm impressed with Laurent Hergon's speed so far. He's actually bronze rated by the FIA, but has done a couple of seasons in GT4 France as part of the FFSA Championship. Started in the Alpine Europa Cup in its inaugural year, which was 2018, when he raced with Autosport GP, and that's exactly his team this year as well, LS Group Autosport GP. So he got 2 teammates effectively out front. Are they going to be more resistant to a potential overtake, therefore? Ergon might be thinking, well, this is a wonderful place for me to be running. Let's not force the issue too much. Simon Tierman, though, into the pits, as you mentioned, and the focus here, John, is the front of the car, almost as if he's bothered about the front splitter coming loose.
Well, it looks to me as though there may have been some kind of impact either underneath the car, and that's dislodged the front clip, if you will, the beautifully sculpted front end of that car, and just popped it. It may have even popped the, I was going to say the bonnet, it's the front trunk, isn't it, really, because that is a storage compartment in the road car, mid-engined machine. I think it's 1.8 engined, very lightweight, beautiful design, really evoking the cars of yesteryear. And I mentioned yesterday that the A110, the original A110, was built under license here in Spain. It looks like we're going to get the Simon Tierman car out, and it'll be a long and lonely run now, and he has dropped off the lead lap, Johnny.
Yeah, crucial that, because there may have been an opportunity if there was another safety car to close up on the field, but he won't be able to do that now. Laurent Hergon, I'm not sure what he's had for breakfast, but he's pushing Jean-Baptiste Mela, who's twice a winner, and forcing him into mistakes. Coming out of turn 8 there, 7 and 8, and now the kink at 9. But I tell you, the heat down the back of the collar here that Hergon is providing is just enough for Jean-Baptiste Mela to be well aware of it. And the little tiny error there from the 22-year-old race leader has brought back into the battle Hugo de Wilde and Liluadu. Very much for the lead here, and it all came from Ergon's pressure in second place.
This is getting very, very spicy indeed, and this is going to make things very interesting. Got to keep our eyes on the championship. Really quality circuits that these drivers will be challenged by throughout the season. So it's still Mela leading, and he'll come through the final corner now. And Stefan Oriacom has gained some positions, but he's been told to give them back to Tugadal Rebro, Philippe Bourgeois and Laurent Richard, 23, 110 and 9. So that's interesting. That's the 3 cars directly behind him, and 2 of those, Johnny, are in the gentleman class, so therefore direct competitors to the championship hopes of Stefan Oriacom.
There was a car that struggled to slow sufficiently into turn 5 as the safety car boards came out. So I just wonder whether they've worked out that that was Stefan, who was, I mean, he didn't do it deliberately. He just couldn't see the boards, I think, and then tried to react by going onto the grass, but really needed to give all those places back again, and in fact did not. So now getting the instruction, at least it's not a drive-through penalty in order to do that, and they've given him the chance to give the places back in real time on the circuit, so he doesn't lose any more spots or indeed race time. We're back to 2 battles of 2 now, because Hugo de Wilde, for whatever reason, just doesn't quite have the pace of Mela and Ergon in front, and Liliouadou picking off the Belgian to an attempt to try and attack that number 27 car initially, so that Liliou can get a second podium of her weekend, running in 4th at the moment, then behind the white, red and blue car of Hugo de Wilde. Then there's a slightly larger gap to Laurent Ergon, whose car looked to be on rails today, less so yesterday, unless he was just caught in traffic and couldn't find a way through. But that number 69 car looks a lot faster, in fact, than number 1 Jean-Baptiste Mela, and we know Mela was the fastest car in yesterday's race because he got pole position for today. And Ergon started a little further down the order, but they found something in setup, you would think, overnight, because that 69 car, very rapid indeed, particularly through the final few corners of the lap. So much so, Mela needing to defend again, putting the car in the middle of the road deliberately so that Ergon can't find the inside line.
These cars are beautifully prepared for competition by Signatech. And if you're a regular listener or viewer to our Radio Show Limited network, you'll know that name from all parts of sports car and endurance racing right up to the highest level. The cars are absolutely slammed. The front wheels right up inside the wheel arches, very reminiscent of the old Super Touring days back in the UK. A little bit of cloud just coming over now as the top 4 are beginning just to come back together. There is an aerodynamic effect, a slipstream effect. These cars are pretty slippery, but they do make a hole in the air. They're not completely wings all over them, so they are pretty slippery, but at the speeds we're talking about here, onto the front straight, which is quite long, you will get an aerodynamic effect. Ditto the back straight, which is where the leaders are heading at the moment. Cracking battle going on just out of the lead group. Garcia Rodez is now, has she just got ahead of Corentin TS there? Is that the TS Herrero Racing car behind her? She was bracketed by the 2 Herrero race cars, or is that Oriacom going past her? Now Oriacom, if it is her, it is him, has to go back through. So it is the 63 of no, it is Rodez who's got ahead. The 63 is still ahead of Tugdal Rebro, so Oriacom has to give. That's another one of the places that Oriacom, Johnny, has got to give back with just 3.5 minutes on the clock. There'll be this one, the next one, and one more, I reckon, to decide the podium positions from these top 4. Somebody is going to be unlucky in race 2 here at Barcelona.
I suppose the problem for Stéphane Oriacom is that he can't necessarily see the race numbers of the cars that are right behind him, so he needs to allow the right ones through, but doesn't want to give somebody else a break. And I don't know whether these cars have pit-to car radios. Probably not. So the team are having to communicate all of this to Stéphane via the boards on the pit lane. So very, very tricky indeed for that instruction to be passed across. Side by side in the gentleman class. Are these the 2 that were right at it yesterday as well? Yeah, I think they
Absolutely
are.
Is.
So Franck Roussel and Gregory Romano, who have very similar speed indeed and did so exactly yesterday as well, yesterday evening's race. They are duking it out for 4th and 5th positions in the gentleman class, which is 11th place overall. Snaking their way through turns 7 and 8, the race leaders now. Jean-Baptiste Mela with a 0.7 second lead over Laurent Ergon, who started 3rd. He's been running 2nd for most of the race. 2 minutes left on the clock. A lap time is just less than 2 minutes, so they'll get to the end of this lap, and one more is now sneaking up the inside there, John. Gregory Romano to take the place on Roussel.
That looked very much like turn 5 to me, the downhill left-hander. Meanwhile, further up the field, Hugo de Wilde and Laurent Ergon are at a daggers drawn as well, which is allowing Jean-Baptiste Mele to just stretch that 3/4 of a second lead that he had at the line. That's probably getting out towards a second now. Doesn't take very much because these cars are so evenly matched. If you have to start defending even the tiniest bit and you're not on the proper racing line, you're in trouble. And, well, in worse trouble, I think, with a right rear puncture is Gregory Romano.
No, I think it's Roussel.
It's Roussel, sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, so Franck Roussel obviously ailing a little bit, and that has helped Gregory Romano to get the place. Now Hugo de Wilde around the outside is going to try and pick off Laurent Ergon, but it's not going to work into turn number 1 as he put Ergon off his stride on what will be the final lap. That's the liveliest battle now all of a sudden. The biggest gap actually has been second to third, but that's the more likely to change now on this closing tour, and this will really gift the victory to Jean-Baptiste Mele. But the other places on the podium are far from decided, John.
It's a right front puncture for the 07 of Roussel, and I don't think this is the last lap, Johnny, because time hasn't elapsed yet. It is the time of the race plus 1 lap in the drivers' regulations.
Yeah.
So there will be 1 more lap. So second, third and fourth together in the sunshine. These Air 110s, in some ways, we know it's a very French car, but for 11 years at the end of the 60s and into the 70s, they were built under license at FASA up at Valladolid on the high Spanish plain. Beautiful city with some wonderful architecture and food up there, and a nice place to pause your journey if you're travelling down through Iberia. I've done that a couple of times in the past. They were built in Mexico and Bulgaria as well back in the day. But of course, remembered mostly as the little French blue race and rally cars that dominated just a 1100cc. They've now grown up a little bit to an 1800cc car, but they retain the absolute design philosophy, often called the French Lotus. Add lightness, that's what Colin Chapman used to say, and very much a good little one can beat a good big one, and that was absolutely the design philosophy in these cars in the days, and that's been carried through to the races. I think they've decided not to throw Roussel back into the race. So there now with 0 on the clock is the last lap board as they go across the line, JP, and Mele has got a handy lead down into turn 1, but it's any 2 from 3 for the 2 remaining podiums, and Goshi Radesk has been off the track again. 30-second time penalty at the final corner.
So rather than bring her in for a drive-through penalty, they're going to add 30 seconds to her race time, and I think that'll be done at the end of the race rather than right now on the timing screen. She trails this 4-way fight for, well, the lead, but more likely for second position, you would have to say. She trails this leading quartet by nearly 10 seconds, and that's going to turn into 40 seconds come the final reckoning. What about Liliu Wadu, though, who's not very far away from Hugo de Wilde? De Wilde's sort of run out of steam now on this attack to Laurent Ergon. A lap ago, he was right on the rear bumper of the 69 car of Laurent Ergon, the 42-year-old French driver, bronze rated after a couple of seasons in the GT4 French Championship, and I think done every single campaign of the Alpine Europa Cup since it started 3 years ago. De Wilde a little better maybe on the brakes into turn 10, so the gap closes to just about a car length now between Ergon and De Wilde. Liliu Wadu taking a watching brief. She's a little bit off the apex, working her way through turn 11 and now 12. And into the braking area of 13. There's maybe one more opportunity to overtake into the chicane, but that would need to be a brave one. Jean-Baptiste Mele, having taken 2 wins earlier on in the season at Magny-Cours, is going to make it 3 victories for season 2021, recovering from a difficult day yesterday. Jean-Baptiste Mele will hang on to his championship lead with maximum points in the Saturday morning race here at Barcelona, John.
Laurent Ergon coming through in second in class as well, 3rd overall, but winning the junior category. Hugo de Wilde for Arero Racing ahead of Liliu Wadu for Patrick Roger Autosport. And look, just looking down to the gentlemen, it does appear that Stefan Orekom did give back those positions, and that will drop him down to third in the gentleman class. Of the 3 people he let through, 2 of them were in his category. I think that's Philippe Bourgeois, who had the problem yesterday for Chazelle Technology course, who will take the gentleman from Laurent Richard. Yeah, they've got across the line. Orekom then in third position, but I think he'll hold on to his lead in the Gentleman Cup. But then again, arithmetic was double period Friday afternoon when I was at school, so frankly I didn't see an awful lot of that.
And if it had been yesterday, we would have been busy calling the first race for these guys, and that was far more attractive to do rather than two lots of maths. So I can forgive you for that. Herrero Racing's Hugo de Wilde then does make the podium for the second day running. And is that 2 third positions for the Belgian racer? Yes, it is, having finished behind Lili Wadou and Simon Thiamen yesterday. It's another third place with 2 different drivers in front of him this time. But Hugo de Wilde for Herrero Racing up to third place, and having to soak up quite a bit of pressure from Lili Wadou from behind. She finishes 4th place in the end, and Wadou scoring consistently well once more. I think probably quite easily she'll hang on to 2nd place in the championship, although Laurent Ergon did finish just ahead in that 2nd place car, which is not part of the juniors, not part of the gentleman class, just scores regular championship points therefore.
And Stefan Orekom, even with that 3rd place finish, will extend his lead in the gentleman's championship. Pierre Macchi not here. He came into this weekend in 2nd place. Stefan Prou, who we honoured at the start of the race, came in here in 3rd position in the gentleman's championship. Philippe Bourgeois, who has had a couple of non-scores, did not start and retired at Spa last time out. He'll add to his 41 points, so will claw his way up the standings, but has not closed the gap on the championship leader Stefan Orekom as we leave the circuit of Catalunya to head to the next race weekend at Le Castellet in the south of France, just up from the coast, the Circuit Paul Ricard, which I think is going to be another great spot before the season-ending event at Portugal, which from memory, JP, I think is at the Algarve, supporting the European Le Mans Series. So you'll be seeing these cars again at the end of October.
Yeah, I can't wait for that, because I have to say I haven't been able to watch much of the Alpine Europa Cup racing so far this season, because they tend to chop and change through different support categories. They are the support category to lots of big events, actually. Nogaro kicked things off, which was in support of the FFSA GT Championship. They then went to Manicourt at the start of May, Spa-Francorchamps in June. So they've had July and August off, but back on the bill of the 24H series here in Spain. They then returned to the FFSA GT Championship at Paul Ricard at the start of October, but then just 2 weeks after that, yes, to the south of Portugal, to the Algarve International Circuit, not a million miles away from the Atlantic coast, just up the way from Faro and Portimao itself, to support the 4 hours of the Algarve, which will end the European Le Mans Series season. And Hugo de Wilde, you have to think, will be on double duty, because he's also part of the Inter-Europol competition initiative into the ELMS full season entry from memory. So it'll be a busy weekend for Hugo.
Mouth-watering prospect of these cars, particularly how nimble they are and how quick they are in a straight line down that long straight, and then through all the roller coaster twisties at the international circuit of the Algarve. I am already excited about that, so I'll be tuned in to make sure I see that one at the end of the season. Championships to be decided by then, but before then, the rather more wide open spaces of the Paul Ricard Le Castellet circuit in south of... I've got to tell you, the venues are pretty impressive. The Manicourt, Spa, Catalunya, then the race, as I say, at Ricard, then the Algarve, Circuit Paul Armagnac with the FFSA GT Championship is a circuit I've always wanted to go to. That's the circuit of Nogaro, and that's the only non-F1 circuit that they go to. And the Nogaro circuit is absolutely outstanding. Almost like a little kart track in design, very compact. And that was the first round of the season down in southwestern France. And already the telling of stories. I was hit at the back by either, is what he said there.
I think I know the colour of it, but
yeah. He said either Gosha or someone else, which I thought was funny. But still in the Parc Fermé at the end with a result. So, very good. And the championship positions then will be totted up as the circus gets ready to move on. We'll check the results for you as soon as we get them through. But
work out where. Just trying to work out where Gautier might finish with the extra 30 seconds. So that will give her 42 behind the leader. So I think 11th position, slotting in between Stéphane Aurier-Combe and Gregory Romano, which I mean is so costly.
It's not going to cost her any junior championship spots because Simon Tierman came into the pits, had that problem and slowed at the end. So she's actually still going to get, let me see, has she already had that? Oh no, she's going to lose one position to Tugdal Rabro, but that's all, because she's not in the junior class, of course. She's in the overall category. So she will drop from third to fourth in the overall category. So that will cost her some points. She'll come away from here thinking this place is not her friend, really. Track limits, gosh, yeah, track limits have been the downfall.
Not just of her, in fairness, because there were a couple of offenders yesterday too.
Exactly what I was going to say, JP.
Yeah.
Not uniquely, but only one that was called during the race. We had a couple of warnings, and indeed we had 2 drivers called for a drive-through yesterday, which in fairness I reckon cost them all of 30 seconds. So that 30 seconds added on to the end of the race time is, it looks like a big penalty, but I think that it's all of that to drive down through the pit lane, if I'm honest. So that seems reasonable to me. And we had a couple of drivers as well who were right on the ragged edge, having had a couple of warnings yesterday, battling up the front of the field. But after that, they clearly managed to tidy their act up. And gosh, today really suffering badly and in the qualifying. And I think that was probably more significant than the race today was just as significant. Sounds like we're getting ready for the podium, so let's cross across and go to our colleague down there on the podium for the local PA.
Hugo, come on. Ahí está Hugo. Tercer clasificado del equipo de Herrero Racing. La segunda posición, deuxième posición por Logan Urgon. Ahí está el francés del equipo LS Group Autosport GP. Vencedor de Winner para el líder del campeonato y el actual campeón Jean-Baptiste Mela. Ahí está el francés del equipo de Autosport GP. En honor al vencedor Jean-Baptiste Mela, anem a escoltar l'himne de França. Ok, felicitación por Jean-Baptiste Mela, que s'ha emportat la victòria. Los trofeos, ahí está. Y vámonos nosotros también con el equipo Team Representative Auto Sport GP con Patrick Bona. Ahí están todos con las copas. Recordemos Hugo de Bild. Ahí está el belga, el tercer classificat, amb Laurent Urgon, Jean-Baptiste Mela, líder, que surt, doncs, més líder aquí del circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya després d'aquesta competició. Aquest és el podi d'Scratch. Farem després el podi de Gentleman i després el podi de la categoria júnior de menys de 25 anys. Congratulations, enhorabona. Vamos a cambiar, nos vamos en el apartado de Gentleman. Posem primer les noves ampolles amb el trofeu, amb aquesta A d'Alpine. I començarem, doncs, que m'indiquin que estiguin preparats. Doncs vinga, anem a començar. Tercera posició, la troisième posició de la categoria de Gentleman pel pilot Gregory Romano, el equipo de Autosport. Vamos! Estava posant la mascareta. La segona posició de l'equip Herrero Racing, Logan Richard. I nos falta el vencedor des de Bèlgica, és Philippe Bourgois. De l'equip de Chazelle Technology Course. Ahí están, cogen los trofeos, també l'ampolla de cava. I doncs aquí el veiem celebrant el pilot belga Philippe Bourgois, que s'ha emportat la victòria en aquest apartat de Gentleman, on no ha pujat al podi el líder del campionat. Ok, thank you, gràcies, merci. Y ens faltaría el podi junior, menos de 25 años. Ponemos de nuevo los trofeos, tot preparat, doncs, també amb els més joves dins d'aquesta categoria que acaba aquí a Barcelona, doncs, les seves dues proves. Ahir van fer la primera i avui la segona, Alpine Elf Europa Cup. Júnior, tenim com a tercer classificat en la troisième posició, Corentin Thiers. Bravo! Ahí està, la segona posició de l'equip d'Autosport, Lilu Vado. Lilu. Ayer terminaba también en el podium segunda. I guanyador, Hugo de Wilde. Ahí està el belga, que abans doncs havia sortit com a tercer Scratch. Hugo de Wilde. Ahí está, vencedor en l'apartado júnior. Agafem també els trofeus, ok, per la foto. També, doncs, amb aquest taló d'Alpine pel guanyador. Doncs enhorabona per Corentin Thiers, per Lilu Vado i Hugo de Wilde, darrere dels podis, en aquest cas en l'apartat júnior. Hem començat per l'Scratch, en l'apartat de Gentleman, ok, l'última de les fotos i d'imatges. I ens anem ja, doncs, a parlar de les 24 hores de Barcelona d'automobilisme, trofeu Fermí Vélez, que ja tenim a tots els vehicles aquí sortint de boxes, i per tant, doncs, a les 12 en punt, que ja falta ben poquet, tot preparat ja per l'inici de la competició de resistència del circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya en l'apartat d'automobilisme, les 24 hores. Vinga, benvinguts.
So that's the 3 podiums dealt with the latest rounds of the Alpine Elf Europa Cup. And the Alpine Elf Europa Cup will now move on to the penultimate races that take place at Paul Ricard at the start of October. 2 races there in the south of France, followed by 2 weeks after that, the 2 races to complete the season at the Algarve International Circuit in Portugal. Championships still very much to be decided, and 4 very exciting races to look forward to if we judge this weekend's action at all. Do look forward to the final and closing stages of the 2021 Alpine Europa Cup in October. We'll see you there. Bye for now.